Okay, welcome back to Seller Sessions. I am your host today, Sharon Evan, and it's been a good couple of weeks since I have made a podcast. I've had a lot going on in my life in the last couple of weeks. We moved into sort of like an Airbnb because we had to leave our house because we sold our house and we're building a new house, which was supposed to be ready in August, but it won't be ready until October. So we've had to move into a temporary home until our new home is ready. And while we were packing and all the stress of, life, and obviously business doesn't stop while you're doing that, I also got a really bad virus and I ended up in hospital. This virus was attacking all of my joints all over my body. And yeah, it's all behind me now. Life is somewhat back to normal. As much as it can be. Still chaos, but somewhat back to normal. So I really wanted to come on, and Danny was also saying that he's very understanding. It was just asking, what's happening, and I was like, yes, I'm going to make a podcast. And I was sort of sitting down with myself and thinking, what do I feel like speaking about, right? It's hard. I've been on the podcast for I think this is my I think 3 years now. 3 years, and then did YouTube since 2019, so that's a good couple of years as well. Sometimes it's hard to come up with content, especially when you do what I do, which is I walk the walk every single day. I'm building brands, building products every single day of my life, so it's hard to come up with content all the time, and most of the time I'm making content around what I'm going through. And over the last 2 years specifically, I found that my biggest passion in life and the thing that gets me the most fulfillment, I feel like I've sort of discovered myself. And as we grow, or discovered a new side of myself, and as we grow, as we age, we find new things that get us excited. We learn new skill sets, etc. And it's okay to change somewhat. I'm still heavily in Amazon. I'm still an Amazon seller, and my life is still on Amazon every single day. But what I've discovered is that the thing I love the most, that makes me happy, and doesn't even feel like work to me, is product development and brand building. So going in, developing a new product, understanding all the different components to develop this product, and then how it fits into a brand, and then building that brand. And I've been working on a few different projects recently, and I thought that one of the most important things today that I think is really, really important for people to take into consideration is the way that they approach Amazon coming into 2023 and onwards. I think this podcast will still be relevant in 2024 and also in 2025. I think what I'm about to say has been relevant at least for the last year and a half, and will be relevant a long time moving forward. And it's that when it comes to product research, the way that we approach product research has changed. Back in the days, you'd go on Helium 10, which I don't use anymore at all, the software, but whatever, Helium 10, Jungle Scout, whatever it may be, you'd go, if you're on Helium 10, you'd go into something like X-Ray, and you would start looking for products through putting all sorts of different filters. That kind of shit worked years ago. Okay, now here's the thing. I'm making this podcast specifically for the seller sessions audience, and a lot of the seller sessions audience is 7 to 8 figure sellers. And in my experience, a lot of these sellers, the 7 and 8 figure sellers, which I'm one of them myself, we started Amazon in 2016. Many of you started before me, some of you started after me, but a lot of people started 5, 6, 7 years ago. Amazon's a totally different, jungle today. It's changed dramatically. Back in the day, we could get away with just putting up, a cup, putting a logo on it, and that's it, and it would sell, or putting up just some sort of gadget, etc. And it was all about hacks and things like that. And the other day I was on a call with someone, and they were like, "Oh, they called something a hack." And I said, I don't do hacks, and I know that hacks are, I don't know, people that run events, run the different hacks, competitions, etc. You don't need hacks to do well on Amazon today. What you need is a really, really great product that's highly differentiated and is very, very focused on your buyer avatar. And you need to build a brand. You need to put a lot of work and effort into branding. Now, I've already done multiple podcasts on branding, and I probably will continue to do in the future as well. I did one on a long podcast on how to know your brand archetype and how to use brand personality, in order to get people to be excited about your brand and want to buy from you. And I've spoken about branding, and Danny's had people on to speak about branding multiple times as well. I feel, and I'm extremely passionate about what I'm saying here, that that's the only way moving forward. So whether you're a seasoned seller or whether you're someone who is new to Amazon and you're listening to this, if you're now wanting to start a new brand in 2023, those days of going into, Jungle Scout, Helium 10, whatever it may be, and just putting in filters and just looking for a random product, those days are over, right? Those days are over. I know that there's a lot of people that still sell that type of approach to Amazon, because that's all they know, because they don't know something else, right? A lot of people launched a lot of products years and years ago and are, making millions, but haven't launched products in the last year or so. And not only that, if you started a long time ago, as well, and you've built some sort of credibility on, even if they're like Me Too types of products on Amazon, and that worked for you back then, it probably won't work for you today. So what I want to talk about is, how do we then find products today in 2023? Now, obviously it's a podcast, even though we also have the videos. I'm not going to do a full-on tutorial on how I find products. Instead, I'm going to tell you the types of questions that I ask clients that I work with or myself in order to get ideas for a starting point. Never anymore is my approach of, how do I launch a new product? Always moving forward, my approach is, how do I launch a new brand? What are the first whatever amount of products that will be part of the brand? What product makes sense to start with first? And to answer that question, you need to know your goals. You need to know your finances. You need to know your budget. And then depending on what the brand is and depending on the complication of the products, that's also how you decide what product you launch first, or what product you start working on first. Sometimes you're working on 3 products at the same time, one super, super complicated and the other 2 are less complicated. But never is my approach anymore on how do I find a product? I'm not interested in that. It's not going to work. And if it works, it's going to work short term. It's not there. It's not, this is a long game. And most of those types of products that we used to launch back in the days, they won't have longevity anymore in 2023. Maybe you'll do well for 6 months. Within 6 months, everyone's going to copy you. If you haven't done highly differentiated products, or you haven't approached this on a branding level, okay, your products will last 6 months, maximum a year, until it's way too saturated. No one's buying you from you anymore. Or your market's going to be really, really, really saturated, and therefore you're going to then lose a lot of market share. So some questions that I ask myself when it comes to starting points. So there's a few different questions. I even have this little worksheet that I'll usually send out to a client that I'm working on building a brand with. And by the way, I've, in the last couple of years, both built new brands of my own that are relevant to the way that I approach Amazon today, right? Because when I started Amazon, my approach was different, because we didn't need to think this much. It wasn't as it had different complications, right? It was different. It's not that it was better or worse. It was different. And I've helped many, tens and tens. Okay. I can't say hundreds in the last 2 years, but over 20, even 30 people build new brands in the last couple of years. It's also why I've made less content. I'm so busy doing so much research, sourcing, developing new products, coming up with new designs, helping people to build their brand identities, etc., that I don't have time to make as much content as I used to, because I used to not really take on these types of projects. But now I'm just so excited about the opportunities that are out there if you approach it in a highly differentiated and brand first approach. So what are some questions you can ask yourself if you're looking to launch a new brand or looking to find a new niche, and you are stuck for where do I start? So here are some ways to find some starting points. One of the questions that I always ask clients or myself is hobbies. What are hobbies that you may have? What are hobbies that your children may have? What are hobbies that your partner may have? Sometimes I'll ask this question and someone will say, well, I don't have any hobbies, right? There are some boring people in the world. And if you're one of them where you don't really, get out much or do much, that's okay. But the people around you probably do, right? So if you're it's not your hobbies, well, what are people around you? And there are so many things that can be done with hobbies. First of all, we all have weird hobbies. Like, for example, I'm highly into adult Lego. I love Lego, and I'm 34, almost soon 35, right? And I love Lego. I love building Lego. And there's a whole entire niche around, Lego for adults. There's many, 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 many things that one could get into when it comes to hobbies. But it's not just that. There's the hobbies that you may... let's just pretend one of your hobbies is basketball. I'm not telling you to sell basketballs, but there's many things that you can do. You can do basketball decor. You can create, pillowcases with basketball designs on them. There's so many different things. And you could either become the go-to brand for that type of hobby, for that type of niche that you've decided, or, you may include many, many different things. So, for example, if I love basketball and I wanted to create a basketball brand, not selling basketball or basketball clothing or anything like that, and not infringing on any type of trademarks, but rather, I wanted to be the go-to brand for kids that love basketball. So for example, making, basketball blankets and basketball pillows and basketball curtains and basketball, I don't know, rugs and basketball plushies, whatever. Okay. And the thing is that even if those niches could be somewhat saturated, there's so many differentiation points that you could find. And that was just me giving one example. Do you know how many hobbies there are in this world? So hobbies are a great way to find a starting point to then go down the rabbit hole of and you want to think big. You want to be creative. You want to think outside the box. If one of your hobbies is, I don't know, let's just say sewing. It doesn't mean that the only thing that you can do are sewing kits, right? There's many, many different things that you could do within that. So think big. Another one that I ask are problems. What are problems that you may face on a daily basis or regularly? And if your life is so perfect that you have zero problems, then okay, well, what are problems your partner may face? What are problems your children may face? What are problems your parents may face, right? There's so many different types of problems, and there are a lot of products that can end up being solutions to that. Obviously, we're also looking at saturation on an Amazon level and how hard or easy it's going to be to enter a new market and etc. But this is one of the questions that I also will ask myself. For example, let's just say if there's a problem that I'm having, for example, let's say that my son wakes me up in the middle of the night, right? Because he gets scared to go to the toilet on his own in the middle of the night, right? So that's a problem that I face. So possibly what I could do is I could look into, glow in the dark products that will help my son to get from his room to the toilet. Or let's just say he wakes me up because he can't find his water bottle at night. So my point is there are so many problems that you can then find solutions through products, and that can help you to then look on a broader level and also build a brand around. I don't know if the examples I gave made sense. They just came to my head because they're actual problems that I face. And then another question that I'll ask is life-changing experiences or milestones that you may have gone through. Each of us have lived, a different life. We walk through different paths, and we've all gone through different things, right? So for example, I've gone through IVF. I've gone through miscarriages. I've lost I've lost my brother. I've given birth, right? That's going from sad things to happy things. I've given birth, and giving birth opened up a whole new niche for me. And I actually built a brand around that, right? I'm not going to go into it, but after I gave birth, I had a few different problems, and I was looking for certain products. This is, more than around 7 years ago. Or 6.5 years ago. So it's a long time ago. But my point is that after I had to give birth to learn about the specific niche that I ended up getting into, right? And there's so many different experiences or milestones that you may have gone through that you can find then opportunities to then build a brand around that specific thing that you've gone through. So that's one question I also ask. And then, of course, there's also the question of interests. What types of things interest you? What do you love, right? I have, this weird obsession with owls. If you're someone that know me, like, I don't know if you can see me, I'm holding it currently because I am I'm holding up owls, like little owl figurines. I have so many owl figurines on my desk. I have an obsession with owls. I love owls, right? So for example, I could go and look at, different type of owl decor, right? On Amazon. I also have an obsession with super, super cute stuff. And that's how I found the kawaii niche. Kawaii means cute in Japanese. It has around 300 search volume on Amazon, 300,000 search volume on Amazon every single month, right? And there's so many sub niches under that. I found that niche because I'm interested in that type of stuff. You may be interested in something totally different, and that will lead you to different types of niches as well. Another thing that I'll ask is something like, different demographics or target audiences or avatars that you either identify with or that you have insights into. Okay. So for example, a couple of years ago, I made a few different videos about building a brand for nurses. Nurses in America need to buy most of their own, most of their own gear. Okay. So, their own stethoscope case, etc. Right? Maybe I'm not, but maybe I'm a nurse and I'm in America, and I identify with that. I am the buyer avatar. I understand it really, really well. And I could have looked into that niche and to see what type of brand I can build. Maybe I wanted to build a brand for nurses, and, it could be a little bit saturated, but my differentiation point was the branding. And I built a super humorous brand, for example, where all the designs, were funny. Or something like that. I'm totally making this shit up, but I'm just saying, right? Sometimes you can be the perfect target audience. And that means that you have certain insights and that you can very easily, I'm a mum, and over the last couple of years, many of the brands I've been involved with have been to do with kids products or with kids related things, because I have so much insight into that. And that's kind of where I've gravitated towards. It doesn't mean it's the only thing I've been a part of, but what I'm saying is when you understand a certain type of demographic or you are a certain type of avatar, sometimes there's opportunities within that as well. Another thing that I'll ask is, if there are any new unique skills that you may possess, or, certain types of things that you're strongly interested in. Sometimes we have skill sets. So I'm just making it up now. Maybe you play the piano, maybe you play the guitar, maybe you know how to knit, maybe whatever it may be. You have certain type of skill sets, and maybe it's not a hobby. Maybe you know how to play the piano because like your parents forced you to play the piano, but you don't actually enjoy doing it, right? But it's a skill set that you have. So imagine all these questions that I've just asked, and you're on an Excel sheet and you're filling all of this out. Suddenly you have a whole bunch of, sometimes it can be over 20, 30 different starting points that they're just starting points. Then you start going down the rabbit hole. This is how a couple of years I found the kids yoga niche, right? And I helped someone to build a brand that's still going strong today around kids yoga. It all started with, he was interested in yoga and meditation. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, in the women's, this is pretty crowded. In the men's, this is, whatever. And then we found kids. And it was also during COVID, and, people were discovering and trying to keep their kids occupied and doing sports and things like that. But at the time, no one was doing yoga related things for kids. And there was search volume around that. And I found that niche because that was a hobby that the person had. So that's what I mean by going down the rabbit hole, because maybe you'll type in yoga, you would type in meditation. And the first thing you would think about, if you're a woman, let's just say, you would say, well, but yoga for women is so saturated. So what? There are so many sub niches under that. Go into, retarget it to someone else. For example, kids, right? When you focus on a very specific type of buyer avatar or a very specific type of niche, you then become the go-to for that type of niche when it comes to products. And not only that, when you build a brand that is hyper focused on only a very specific type of buyer avatar, a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of the times, it's also easier when you're doing your PPC, because as long as from the main image, and by the way, this is actually something really important to say, any product that I'm ever looking into, the first thing that I'm thinking about after I've thought of the differentiation point is, how am I going to place this product? How am I going to present this product on an Amazon level? And I'm thinking about the main image. If I can't show my differentiation point and not necessarily my branding, but my differentiation point in a way where the customer cares about my differentiation point in the main image, if it's, too complicated, if you can't tell, whatever it may be, most often I won't get into that type of product, because I know how crucial it is to have the best main image in the world, right? Where sometimes someone will say to me, yeah, but the material is different, and that material can't be most of the time seen or quality seen from the main image. That is not a differentiation to me. That, that's usually a must. Not usually, quality is always a must. So I'm always thinking about also what the main image is going to look like. Kind of lost my train of thought for a second, but my point is, moving forward, when it comes to product research, when it comes to that side of Amazon, when you're wanting to today, 2023 and onwards, build a new brand or get into Amazon or start something new, I no longer approach it at all of how do I launch a new product. It's, well, if I already have my own brand, obviously it's a different story. If you're starting something new, that's the people I'm kind of talking to in this podcast. It's, how do I build a new brand, right? Because the branding is going to give you longevity. It's going to allow you to also do stuff off of Amazon as well. It's going to help you to resonate with your buyers. It's going to help you to build a following of some sort. It's going to help you to be able to connect with your buyers in a way where they can see themselves within your brand. And that's the way the world is going today, right? I said in the branding podcast in which I did, previously a few months ago, the world has changed, right? Brands back in the day, if you wanted to communicate with a brand, it was totally different. You couldn't just go onto social media and say, hey, I love or hate your brand, right? It was one-way communication through radio, through magazines, through newspapers, through whatever, that's how brands communicated, through advertising back in the day. Today, it's so, anyone can communicate with anything, with anyone. I was at a Christina Aguilera event last night, right? If I wanted to, I could send her a DM and say how amazing she was. And, she may read it. It could happen. I've had celebrities, answer me back, especially in Israel, where I'd be like, oh, you did this amazingly or whatever. And they'd write back with a heart or whatever it may be. And that may sound like it's a stupid example, but, if you want If you want to complain about a brand today, you just go on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok, and you tag that brand and, you have a freaking go at them, and they will always pay attention, right? So my point is that today it's so easy to communicate with your buyers, and it's so easy for your buyers to communicate with you. The world has changed in a way where branding is crucial today, and allowing having your buyers seeing themselves within your brand, and be able to, to be the go-to brand for a specific thing, I think is crucial. And that's my approach today towards product research. So I guess my approach today is, it's not about product research, it's about branding. It's about, how do I build a new brand? And then what are the top products? What kind of products can I put in this brand? What's going to be the first 10 products in my catalog? Obviously that could take 2 years to launch, but still, whatever, it could be your first 5 products. And then which one makes sense to start with the first one? But having a plan, how you're going to start a second one, third one. And that's why when people come and ask me today, hey, Sharon, how much money do you think I need in order to start, selling on Amazon? I don't even know how to answer that anymore. What are you looking to do? Just launch one product, right? Like, are you just looking for an opportunity? Or do you actually want to build a proper business, which includes building a brand, which means you're going to have more than one product, most probably, right? You're going to need to put time and effort into your brand identity, etc. You need money for all of that, right? So in my opinion, long gone are the days that you can just, launch with $3,000 to $4,000 or $5,000. In my opinion, today you need at least 20 plus K to be able to do this properly and not straight away come up with cash flow issues, etc. Anyway, I hope this helped you guys in some way. I hope that the starting point questions help you in some way. You are welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions or anything you want to say. Sharon Evan on Facebook, Instagram, official Sharon Evan, LinkedIn Sharon Evan, and my website, sharonevan.com. If you're interested in working with me on your next brand or, product-based brand, basically, you can reach out to me as well, and we can see if we can work together. And of course, I have my YouTube channel, the Sharon Evan YouTube channel. And that's it. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.